Welcome to today's Latinas Charla. We couldn't close out to Women's History Month without our Latina family. Today we will hear from some powerful Latinas and bring to light the challenges, tragic power, and experiences of Latinos. Before, I would like to remind that we have chat and Q&A enabled. We want to make everyone is able to join the conversation, so please make sure to send your chat to all panelists and attendees. We are thrilled to welcome Valeria Aloe. She is an award-winning author, speaker, and entrepreneur who supports Latina women of color who are first generation into academic and professional spaces. She is the author of Uncolonized Latinas, Transforming Our Mindsets and Rising Together. Her work to empower and elevate the Hispanic community has earned her several awards, including Top Woman in Business in New Jersey in 2020 and fifth most influential Hispanic in New Jersey in 2021, and Truth and Integrity of the Written Word by Golden Door Global Awards in 2022. Thank you for joining us, Valeria.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I want to say thank you to Hispanic Heritage Foundation for this space to celebrate our Latinas. And because it's so important for us to be seen and to be heard, for our stories to be shared, for us to learn from one another, and most importantly, to really embrace that we are not alone in our struggles. So I'm here to share with you what I love the most and all the work that I have done in the recent years, which has to do with mindset and how our culture, our Hispanic culture, has created limiting beliefs that still influence our consciousness. And most importantly, how, as we unlearn those limiting beliefs, we can create more success with less effort. Because who wants to create more success with less effort, less sacrifice, less self-doubt? I definitely want, because in 2016, and after 15 years in this amazing country that I call home, I'm from Argentina, I burned out. So I'm here to share the lessons that I learned and, through the process of being in the darkness of burning out. I'm most probably like you, like many of you, first generation into college and first generation into professional spaces. I'm from a small town in Argentina, General Belgrano. My father never had the opportunity to go to high school. My mother went to high school, but coming from a small town, she never had the opportunity to go to college. So I became their promise. And as I see now, I became their hope to be seen, to be valued, to be appreciated. And I did so with a lot of sacrifice. I worked very hard. I worked full-time while working, while attending college. I sacrificed myself to achieve, and I always looked for validation outside. I looked for others to tell me that I was on the right way, that I was doing it okay. And in a way, I was looking for others to tell me that I was okay. So I ended up exhausted. I pushed myself past exhaustion and I burned out. So today, I want to share 3 things that I learned from that burnout. Number 1, we are a paradox. This is what I call the Hispanic paradox. Hispanics are a paradox. We're extremely powerful, yet we have not realized our power. And there are tons of statistics that I can share with you today, but I will be very brief on that. We're 60 million Hispanics in the US. That's 20% of the population. We're trending to become 100 million Hispanics by 2060. That means that 1 every 3 people walking down the road in 2060 will be Hispanic. Yet, today, we are not in spaces of leadership represented as we should be. We are not creating wealth in the way we should be. Less than 5% of Hispanics in leadership positions, not 1 Latina as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, while we should have 7 to be completely represented, and Latinas making half of what a white non-Latino man makes, leaving on the table $1 million on the course of our careers. So we are a paradox. We're extremely resourceful, creative, powerful, yet we are not there yet. So the second thing that I learned and that I became passionate about is, understanding, why did I burn out? Why do we push ourselves so hard? And I uncovered a set of culture limiting beliefs, which come from our countries, our Latin American countries. And I'm asking the team to right now put a slide on the screen for all to see. And I'm going to go in depth into those cultural limiting mindsets. So this is what's interesting about them. They get passed from generation to generation. So even if you're an immigrant like me, or if you're a child of immigrants, most probably you are influenced in your behaviors and in your decisions by these cultural mindsets, many times unconsciously. So let's cover the first one. The first one is feeling inadequate or inferior. Where is this coming from? We're still in the mindset and in the aftermath of colonization. We come as Latinos from countries that still suffer poverty, that still go through lack of resources, lack of opportunities. And I'm not sure about you, but I was told when growing up that I was in a third world country. And when I stepped into the US to pursue my MBA at an Ivy League, I saw myself as inferior. I was thinking, am I going to even finish this degree? Do I have what it takes to succeed? So our culture was cataloged as inferior, and that is still in our DNA. And it's important that we see this, because this is something that we can and we have to overcome to tap into our highest potential. And as Latinas, we have the opportunity to embrace that we are multicultural, multilingual. We have a unique capability of building authentic relationships. We have power to create, we are passionate, and all of that are super important skills for a leader, and we have them. So to unlearn all of this, we need to embrace the worth and the value that we carry inside. Belief number 2, feeling unworthy of greatness. This is related to colonization as well. When a culture is not seen, when a story, the real story of what happened is not told, those of us who come from that culture feel unseen, unheard, and unworthy. So what happens is when you get opportunities, right? And the opportunities start to pop up around you, you even avoid the opportunities and you do not embrace them, you shy away, or if you embrace them, you start, as I did, overcompensating. So you get promoted and you work harder because you want to show them that they did the right decision promoting you. You overcompensate. That creates sacrifice. That's manifesting from a place of sacrifice and struggle. So what do we do with that? How do we unlearn this? We work in our worthiness. You can do affirmations, you can put sticky notes, as I do all over my house. I deserve, I am worthy, I am resourceful. So we need to start doing that inner work and be more conscious about these ancestral influences that drive us. Number 3, this is a big one, putting our heads down to do the work, hoping somebody will notice it and reward us for doing it. This is an attitude of servitude that comes from our culture and doesn't serve us any longer. So today, as Latinas stepping into, I would say historically, stepping into new spaces, driving change, I mean the first ones, the first females in our families to do so, we need to be super intentional about building our own brand, talking about our greatness, sharing our victories with others. Number 4, being just thankful for the opportunity and feeling greedy or apologetic when asking for more. Being just thankful means being happy with the crumbles. That's not who we are. We are not going to be happy with the crumbles. So yes, we are thankful, but we are not just thankful. Thinking that you, or feeling that you are greedy for asking more, that holds you back. So I'm here to tell you that it is okay to want more. If no one told you this before, it is okay to want more. It is okay to ask for more. And I invite you to build a network of mentors and sponsors who will advocate as you look and seek for more. And finally, feeling there is not enough for all. This is our scarcity mindset. So what do we do? When there is one chair opening up, we tend to compete a little bit with each other. We tend to elbow each other to see who gets there. However, the way to unlearn this is to collaborate and to build alliances, not only within the Latino community, but also outside the Latino community, so that the person who gets access to that chair at the table opens up and has the mindset of abundance to open up more chairs for others. So these are just some of the unconscious limiting beliefs. We have more. We have gender roles for Latinas. We have colorism in our community. I could be speaking about this for an entire hour, but I'm being mindful of the time. So as I asked the team to remove the slide from the screen, I want to share with you this quote from Carl Jung that says, unless you bring the unconscious to the conscious, it will control your life and you will call it fate. So today we have the opportunity to discuss these topics, to bring it to the consciousness. And as we do so, I want to share with you the third learning that I had through the darkness of my burnout. The first was we're a paradox. The second was we're driven and influenced by the cultural limiting beliefs. And the third is we are powerful. I felt for a long time that I was a victim of the circumstances and powerless. The day I discovered that I had a choice, that I can choose to blame others, the system, my boss, my coworker, for my fate, or that I can choose to be absolutely responsible for what I create in my life by working with my mindset and also being assertive in taking action, that day changed my life. So I want to encourage you to keep working on the mindset. I want to encourage you to be brave and to speak up and to share what's in your heart. We need these conversations. Latinas need healing. We need these spaces like the one we have today. And I want to acknowledge every Latina that we have today, sharing from their journeys, sharing their victories, sharing their struggles, and sharing the common vision that we want to create. We want and we need to do more of that. So to wrap up, we all deserve to be seen. We all deserve to be heard. And we all deserve to realize our highest potential. For us Latinas, the best is yet to come as we awaken to our greatness. Thank you so much.
Well, good afternoon. I already have my timer on. I want to make sure that I stay within time. To Tony Tijerino, thank you so much for inviting me. And Valeria, thank you for your presentation. I think it was very timely and, you know, I can't relate to a lot of the aspects that you brought up. So I'm the president of the DC Chamber of Commerce. I'm the first Latina to have that position at the DC Chamber of Commerce. And in the United States, I believe there are only 2 Latinas that are running mainstream organizations, and we need more of that. And I'm not going to say that it's easy. I'm not going to say that it has been an easy journey, but I want to share a couple of things that I do and that has brought me here. The first one is, you know, getting the education I needed and making sure that I understood what I was doing. I cannot say that I run a Chamber of Commerce when I don't understand the business, when I don't understand finances, when I don't understand the business community. You have to be good in what you do. And the other things that I do are very, very connected with what Valeria was talking about. And it's a daily practice. I'm a mother. I have a 13-year-old boy. I have no family here. And I grew up in Colombia. I moved here when I was 31. I'm 51 now, and I've been here 20 years. So I basically started my career all over again when I was 31. And now here I am. And I want to share with you some of the things I do to overcome some of the challenges we have. The first one is I surround myself with good people, people that want to see you grow. Sometimes we're stubborn and we want this person to listen to us. No, just go to people that want to see you grow. There's a lot of people that are there to help you. Stick with them, stay with them. And obviously that's somebody that you see that is teaching you and making you better. The second one, speak up. But speak up, like Valeria was saying, speak up is not screaming. Speaking up is, you know, making a point, making sure they hear, making sure you show you're in the room, and making sure that you ask for respect. Sometimes people don't do it, don't respect you, not because they want to, maybe they don't see it, but it's up to you to protect you. Nobody else can do it. You have to protect you. You have to protect your career, your being, most importantly. I exercise at least 4 or 5 times a week. That helps my mind. That helps my body. It makes me feel better. I eat healthy. I pray every morning, and I pray every night. And, you know, I bring a lot of dignity and pride in everything I do. And the other thing, I pay it forward. And always remember these. Pay it forward. If somebody has helped you, say thank you. You know, make sure they're okay. Make sure you go back to them and say, is there anything I can do for you? I see, for example, and I'm going to bring, I see, for example, Tony gives back to the community. He brings back people that have helped him. I have a mentor when I moved here, Jane Garcia. She's living in Germany now. I talk to her every week. I make sure she's okay. You know, she's keeping up, and anything I can do for her, I will do. So at this point, you know, I just wanted to, I'm just very, very proud to be here. Very happy to be here. I'm here to help. If there's anybody that if you need anybody to talk to, if you want an advice, if you want to run ideas, I'm always here. I never hear from a lot of Latinas, so maybe reaching out applies to all of us, reaching out a little more. It's okay to ask for help. Sometimes we need a little hand, and it's hard for us to ask for help. So please do. And I just, in the 30 seconds that I have, I want to share that 3 years ago, we incorporated a nonprofit that is called Latinas USA. Latinas USA is a nonprofit that helps Latino women have financial and economic independence. And for me, the emotions and the business are connected. You cannot be a great businesswoman if you're not a good person. And having your emotions in place without putting them at service of others doesn't do any good. So with that, I send a hug to everybody. Antonio, thank you so much for inviting me. To Jessica, thank you so much for including me as well. And to Teresa, thank you for coordinating and for accommodating my schedule as well. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone. As Teresa mentioned, my name is Yvette Fernandez. I'm the VP of Government Relations for Endeavor. Endeavor is a large Hollywood company based out of LA. Although I am based at UFC headquarters in Las Vegas, Endeavor is the parent company of UFC, Miss Universe, Professional Bull Riders, New York Fashion Week, IMG, Miami Open, and we also own WME, one of the largest talent agencies in the world. We represent Oprah and Ben Affleck and Serena Williams and Lin-Manuel Miranda and among hundreds of other well-known clients. First, I want to thank Tony, a dear friend of mine, for inviting me to participate in this charla. I'm honored to be associated with the organization and the mission and this charla, especially ending Women's History Month. And so I was so impressed with both of the former speakers' presentations, and I want to just echo really everything they said. At the end of the day, what I want to impart is, I'm one of the highest ranking Latinas in the company. I, originally from Alaska, born and raised. I went to college in DC, and I was in politics, worked for 2 Alaska's US senators, as well as for President Bush in the White House, and then worked in the nonprofit, and now in the private sector, in philanthropy / government relations. And what I've learned throughout the years is you really need to know who you are. I think that a lot of people think they know who they are, but most people sleepwalk through life, not knowing who they are, not wanting to change, because people fear change, which is why a lot of people stay in negative situations, because change is more fearful than staying in a negative situation. So really understanding who you are. And I would, there's a book called Attached. that I would recommend. It's by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. It's a book about attachment theory. It's about understanding, how you are motivated. I think it's just really important to understand kind of your background and how, who you are and why you are the way you are. So you can kind of look forward and plan, your, next steps, but you can't move your next steps if you don't know where you are and where you want to go. Also, important to be able to set boundaries. I think as women, and I think as Latinas, family and culture, we're greatly influenced by family, which is very important, and our culture. And a lot of times we're asked to do things that maybe our siblings or other people wouldn't, do, but we volunteer because, or we say yes because of our connection to our family. But it's important to set boundaries, and that familial situation will actually carry over to work, where it's important to have healthy boundaries. And there's a book called Boundary Boss by Terry Cole. Again, another book that I recommend that you read, just great to kind of understand boundaries, boundary setting. My mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 7.5 years ago. And unfortunately, right before New Year's on December 29th, she passed away. So I'm still healing from that. And being in a senior position at a large Hollywood company, going through with my mother's illness was very, obviously in itself, it would be very impactful, but having to do both at the same time, I learned a lot. And what I learned is the importance of, again, of healthy habits. Again, another book I want to talk about is called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Again, every day you make choices, and those choices will result in what tomorrow and the following week will look like, and next year and the following year. So it's important to implement good habits right away. And again, I learned that with my mom's illness. So sleeping, you hear that a lot, but I can't stress the importance of sleeping. For me, actually, it's more important than anything else, including exercise and nutrition, only because if you don't have sleep, your brain is not able to clear everything out, and you're not making good decisions, including your health, including work decisions, personal decisions, etc. So it's really important I need between 8.5 hours of sleep each night. I can of course function on 5. I can possibly sleeping until 9.5 hours, but the point is that I've realized about 8.5 hours is where my body needs that. Importance of exercise. Again, you're going to hear that lots, and a lot of people think of exercise just from a physical perspective, but again, remember your brain needs the exercise. Everything that's happening to your body is also happening to your brain. So that exercise, that getting your your heart rate up is important because it also helps your brain. So exercise, again, going for walks and just trying to get your heart rate elevated at least 3 times a week. Nutrition, I'm on an anti-inflammatory diet the rest of my life because they've shown that inflammatory foods are causing Alzheimer's. And again, I'm only talking about the specific disease because I'm so entrenched in it and so interested in it, and especially how it's impacting my mom and my family and possibly me in the future. So, 40% of all current Alzheimer's cases could have been prevented by a lifestyle change, and that's exercise, nutrition, and mental well-being. So if I can control 40% of possibly not getting Alzheimer's, then I'm going to do it. And that includes sleep, exercise, and nutrition. So anti-inflammatory diet, and this is very strict. I no longer eat red meat, egg yolks, dairy, industrialized grains, or sugar. And I was like, well, what can I eat? I can eat all the chicken, turkey, vegetable, duck. I can eat, chicken, turkey, duck, seafood. I can eat all the vegetables, including potatoes. I can eat all the fruit I want. I can drink all the coffee and tea. I can drink coffee and tea and water. Outside of that, I don't drink anything else. And which means, and I can eat, quinoa and those things. And I can eat dark chocolate. It has 70% more cocoa. So these are very specific things. It's very drastic, but it's actually improved my health and how I feel about just my clarity in my mind, but also to how I feel physically. Going to Angela's point, every morning I pray, but I also listen to inspirational messages. Joel Osteen, I love, and so did Joe Smyer, but I also listen to Tony Robbins. I listen to Oprah Winfrey. Again, just YouTube, positive thoughts. Again, if you have to start your day every day with something positive, like I'm a news junkie. I actually watch I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. I don't watch a lot of news anymore, I should say, because I love Netflix and those things. But I have to be careful about what I'm intaking in my brain, because at the height of when I was watching the news, up until a couple of years ago, it was so negative that it was actually impacting how I was feeling. So I realized it's important to, again, balance that with something positive. So every morning when in the shower, I listen to something positive. And that does really help me, and it helps motivate me. And then lastly, I just want to say that if you aspire to be in a senior position in any company, small, large, medium, or big, you're going to make sacrifices. I'm single, don't have children. I don't regret any of my decisions, but I wish that somebody when I was younger had told me that if I wanted to get married or have a family, to start younger. So if you are under 35 and you want to have a family and you want to get married, then I would start being more intentional with looking around the men that are available in your pool, because as you get older, that pool gets smaller and smaller, and especially the quality guys that you are looking for, especially the top Latinas who want to make a difference in the world. But if you are 35 and or getting to that age and you want to have a family and you don't want to date or don't have a boyfriend, then I would recommend you freeze your eggs. I don't know if might be it's still kind of, people are talking more about it, but it might be a taboo subject. But I think it's important for women to understand that yes, we can do it all, but not all at one time, and to realize that there are biological limits, and one of them is having children. So if you do want to have children and you are not married by the time you're 35, I would recommend to freeze your eggs. And even if you are married and you don't want to have kids at that point, freeze your eggs as well. Look at your insurance. A lot of insurances now are covering it. And that could be covered, again, and that'll help you. So I, again, and just finally, while we're always, told in our world that, awards and titles and money are important, at the end of the day, you really have to follow your purpose and your passion, and make sure that you're enjoying it, because you have a very successful career and you're wealthy and you're not enjoying it, then it's for naught. I'm just taking this, so there's no such thing as someday. You only have today. I'm telling this from a mom's perspective. She always wanted to go to Europe. She never went because she was always working. There was always an excuse. So if there's something you want to do it now. Don't wait. You only have today. So thank you so much again for having me. I can be available. I'm on LinkedIn. My email address is ifernandez@endeavorco.com. And you'd also reach out to Tony to get my cell number or whatever else. But thank you. God bless you. And happy Women's History Month.
So hi there. I feel that this charla so far has connected me to the women that are speaking and to those who I can't see. I want to thank all of you for what you shared, and speaking. I feel like you're speaking to my heart, and it's and my soul. And I was, I wanted to speak to you about being brave, and how I thank you, and how I have focused on bravery in my work and in my life, because I for so long I felt afraid. And I was a small, if you can go to the next slide, please. I was a very, very small little girl, tiniest little girl in my school. And I started school at a very young age. First grade, I was 4.5 years old. And why? Which is very young. Because my parents worked and they needed to put me in a school, and they thought, well, we'll just put her in school and it'll be okay. And of course I was too small and too young, and my language skills were not good and my math skills weren't ready. But every day I came home and I cried, and I was told, be brave. And I really didn't know what that meant. And over time, and I'll share with you a quick story of where the women in my life came from, and what bravery means to me now, and how I hope I am building bravery in women and young women and children through my work. So I have three kind of key points. Spain in 1937, probably those of you who are interested in history know that these are some kind of inflection points in history. Cuba in 1962, 71 is no inflection point. That's just my birth year. I'll go to the next slide, please. So these are the women in my life. On the Mary Lowe was my grandmother. She fought in the Spanish Civil War. She was the first writer in English of what was happening in the war with her husband, Juan Brea. She was a Trotskyist. She fought with a pen and with that pistol that you see there in her hand. Be brave. This is the woman that raised me, because the one on the right, Helga Silva, my mother, who is the vice president of news now at Telemundo, wasn't there around. She was working a lot. She was working all the time in the newsroom. At 3:30 at deadline, said, Lila, don't bother me. Talk to your grandmother. And so these women that raised me, who were working hard, who told me to be brave, when I would come home from school crying and that I was afraid of being in school, said, well, then we will make school for you at home. They wrote my books. They made my games. They made my playing cards. They changed my bedroom into a tent. And that was a tent that they told me, that's the tent of inclusion. The words that we use now, I was used as a child. And if you're brave, you will invite everybody into your tent. So what that means to me now, I have women in my life who told me to not be afraid. And if you are afraid, make your own world. And I want to talk to how that connects. Make your own world, make your own books, make your own games, and then invite everybody in to play with you. And how that's affected every aspect of my life. So you go to the next slide, please. So my work, in my life, I worked at the U.S. Department of State and the Foreign Service, where I worked in building programs for learning through play. And I worked at USA Broadcasting, building live after-school program, children's programming. I built out with Lego Education, national and global programs for playing through robotics and STEM. I built the first esports programs for children across the state of Florida and across the United States. And now I worked at Minecraft Education. In every single one of these positions, I thought, like Valeria was saying earlier, that I was not qualified to have that role, that I was so thankful that someone gave me the opportunity, and that if I worked really hard, someone maybe will give me another job in the future. I believed all of that. And when I would tell that to my parents and my mother, she'd say, how can you say this after all that we've done and after all that you've seen? And I still felt this way. But every time I would see a child grow, become more confident, have a voice, I knew that I was doing the right thing. And those 3 kids that are there, those are my children. Those 2 boys are on the spectrum. And so when I knew that they literally didn't have a voice and they could not be in school, they reminded me of me. No one's going to listen. Do you have a space? Do you have a place? So I made school for them at home. And when I couldn't, I made school for them through the work that I did by building programs in their school system so that they would have a robotics team, and all the children that didn't have voice would have a robotics team or a STEM team. And Lego Education, creating opportunities through grants and grant funding to learn programming languages. And in esports, where not just for the gamers, but for that girl that was in the middle who quote unquote hated gaming, I didn't realize that she was producing all of their streaming. So opportunities for girls who want to produce shows and want to write shows, or her graphic artists through esports. And that brought me to Minecraft Education, which to me, as someone who has always wanted to tell stories and to create brave stories and create inclusive spaces, Minecraft Education for me has been an opportunity to build stories around active citizenship and a world of play and exploration where students who never had a voice now can have a voice and can share that work. So, brave confidence comes through play. It comes through creating an inclusive space, no matter where you are, no matter how tiny you are, no matter if you have someone if you have inspiring family members or you want to inspire your family members. And the work that we do, whether it's at home, whether it's in the classrooms and the books that we make for our children, or for the ones that we never see but that we know will be impacted, or their families, being brave to me is a tingle in the stomach that says, oh my gosh, Lila, you're afraid. And that moment that you say, "Ay, Lila, you're afraid," go do it. Go do it. That's a sign that says it's for you. And even if it doesn't work out the way you thought, and what does, you're being brave. And it's important for us to be brave together. So I'm Lila Bowman. I work with Minecraft Education Edition and the Microsoft team.
Hi, first I just want to say hi. Thank you for inviting me to speak. It's an honor to have this platform to share my experience. I'm a sophomore at Fairfax High School, a Latina of mixed heritage. My mom is from San Antonio, dating back to when it was Mexico, and my father is first generation of Peruvian heritage. My grandparents came here in the 60s, and growing up, I always heard stories from my dad about life in Peru, and from my mom, stories of growing up in a majority Mexican-American community. And obviously, I got the best of both worlds by being able to eat both traditional Peruvian and Mexican foods growing up. So the backgrounds have helped shape me by implementing the values of family and the importance of a community. My parents made sure that I always felt like I was connected to my grandparents and my cousins and my sisters and my brothers and my family here and in Texas and in Spain and in Peru. And I always felt like people had my back in a big melting pot of a family. I've always been proud of my culture, and I love being able to share it with my friends and my community, whether it was bringing tamales for lunch at school or my up and coming delayed quinceañera. I've involved a lot of my friends in my quinceañera by placing them in my court, which, if you don't know, when you have your quinceañera, you have your court of friends, close friends, partners who do a dance before the party starts. And through that experience, they've been exposed to Latino culture and in a unique and in-depth way. And I'm so glad to have been able to give them this opportunity. My friends are all from different backgrounds. They're Filipino, Vietnamese, Ethiopian, Polish, Irish. Other than my siblings and my cousins who are in the court, none of them are Latino. But they're committing time every weekend to rehearsing the cumbia that we're learning, and they're so excited to be part of my cultural celebration. They spent time practicing salsa, bachata, and merengue in preparation for the big day. And they're supporting and embracing the cultural experience I'm sharing, and that just feels amazing to see it. And I feel amazing being a part of it. I'm overjoyed at the reception I've gotten from them. They all are interested and respectful, and seeing that gives me hope for my future and my generation as a whole. The last few years have obviously been hard with the pandemic and crisis on the border and the murder of George Floyd, but I've seen moments that have inspired me where people come together to step up and push for change. Student action was big at my high school this year. We've had several walkouts. Our most recent walkout was a few months ago in support of a teenage girl who had her hijab ripped off. And my friends and I are always making sure we go out to protest and make sure our voices are heard, especially during the Black Lives Matter movement. Seeing people come together from all walks of life to unite under a cause is a very special thing for me to see. And it gives me hope that there's a better future waiting for all of us. And it gives me confidence that my generation is pushing for the change, and the spreading of culture is uniting people together. So all together we are able to push for a change. It's a pivotal time in my generation as well for everyone, but particular, I feel, in my generation, as we're about to reach voting age, or some of us are already there. And we are deciding how we want to influence the nation and the world. As I'm preparing for applications to college and picking my major, and most of my friends are also involved in that, I see teens around me in person, on social media, my friends asking, what impact can we make? What impact will I make for me, for my community? What can we make of ourselves? And I'm so glad I'm here right now among a bunch of amazing Latina role models that are just inspiring me, and I can draw inspiration for my future. As a young Latina, I see great opportunity, but I also see the challenges that face our community. And I believe that we all have much to contribute in order to make a lasting change to make the road easier for those that come next. To finish off, I'm excited about the future. I've been able to see eagerness that my generation has to make a difference in the world. And I've seen the support that we've gathered behind us. And I just think that the community working together, the importance of community sticking together is just really, it's really what's going to make a difference in the world, where everyone can just express their culture and be who they are, and be proud of it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Paulina, and I'm here with Natalia. And today we're going to be talking about Las Jefas, who we are, what we're doing, what our collection means to us, and what it means to be Latina within the project that we're working on. So as stated, I'm Paulina Cámara. I'm the communications officer for Las Jefas, and I'm going to pass it off to Natalia to introduce herself and talk a bit about what we are and what we're working with.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalia Dunlap. I'm a program manager at Microsoft and the co-founder of Las Jefas. The story that went behind the creation of this collection was inspired not just by my experience, but our entire team's and loved ones' experiences, and not just being immigrants, but also Hispanic and Latinx in the States. I came here when I was about 3 years old, and my parents, much like many others, wanted to provide my sister and myself a better opportunity at life and at education. We lived in a majority immigrant and Brazilian community, to where growing up, the American dream was graduating high school and getting a job. You made it. It wasn't until my mom remarried an American that college was introduced to my roadmap and to our vocabulary. But as I achieved different milestones in my life, I always felt like I was behind everybody else. I learned how to best apply and prepare for college and internships after I got in. I learned about resume building opportunity, internships, and mentoring programs after I got a job. I learned about investing years after my friend had started. And it wasn't on purpose, but these weren't conversations that my family or the community around me knew to have, or knew that we were capable of having and participating. So when we were creating Las Jefas, we saw a unique opportunity to make Web3, NFTs, and crypto one less area to where our community was one of the last to join, especially since these new spaces aren't just impacting corporations, but they're impacting individuals. They're also impacting future career tracks, positions you can apply for, tracks you can study. Through our art, we want to push out Latina representation and to let everybody know you can look a lot of different ways, and it's not just one stereotype that we all fall under. But we don't just want to push out that representation. We also want to focus on resources for internships, scholarships, and more, all in one central area, and help make these conversations more frequented in our homes and in our communities and within our loved ones. At the end of the day, we want the next generation to have less reason to say, I wish I would have known that. We took from our experiences and we want theirs to be better. So I will actually pass it back over to Paulina so that she can expand a little bit more on what exactly are we doing, our different partnerships, and if you want to get involved or just be a little fly on the wall for our journey, she'll provide a little bit more of that too.
Yes, next slide, please. Here we have the mission statement for Las Jefas, which, as Natalia said, we want to bridge this gap between crypto, Web3, NFTs. I myself studied computer science. I'm a recent college grad. And even then, when I started working on some of this stuff, I was like, I have no clue what's an NFT, where can I buy? Those types of resources are the things that we want to provide for others, because as previously stated, we found out about this, all these opportunities after the fact, after we'd graduated, after we had gotten our jobs. And it seems like a responsibility of us as Latinas to be able to give back to the Hispanic and Latina community that can also benefit. And not only that, who is in the shoes that we were once at, And there's still a time gap. There's still things that we can do to help. And that's what we want to focus on. So in our next slide, we answer the question. So what are some of the goals of Las Jefas? Next slide, please. So of course, as stated, the overarching goal is to give back to the Hispanic and Latinx community and to empower Latinas. But what does that mean? Like, what are their tangible steps? So as I said, a lot of us, we didn't know about these resources until after the fact. So through Las Jefas, we are providing learning opportunities through infographics, live speaking sessions. We have one on Friday, learning sessions and resources that all center around crypto, Web3, and they can all be found on our website. We push them out on all our social media pages. We have live interactions. We go on Twitter Spaces. We talk to other people that are helping in the NFT community. Hey, how can we give back? How can we help not only through we're selling this collection, but rather how can we make sure that we're encouraging, we're empowering, we're driving people in who want to learn more about this. Not only that, things like conference opportunities. We were pairing up with the Grace Hopper Conference, scholarship resources. We have scholarships on our website that anybody can join. You don't have to be a citizen. Education should be available to all, regardless of where you come from. And ultimately, our goal through Las Jefas and through our NFT collection, which is the first ever Latina-only NFT collection to incorporate culture. As you can see from some of the artwork that we've been putting on these slides, this beautiful artwork is supposed to represent all Latinas. It's supposed to be like looking at the pictures and being like, hey, I see myself in that. Not in all sorts of representative community that we want to build through our project and what we want to encourage others to follow as well. Ultimately, our goal is to have our Las Jefas Scholarship as well, which will, as previously, will be available on Hispanic and Latinx students who wish to study STEM or business in the U.S. And U.S. citizenship is not taken into account. We all deserve the right to chase our dreams regardless of where we come from. And these are just a couple of the things that we're doing as we build up Las Jefas. And giving back to the Hispanic community. We were once in that position where we didn't know what a lot of these things meant. We didn't know where to look for. If I want to go find an internship, if I want to find the scholarship, and that's what we're working on, to be able to get back to those because we know what it feels like. And we added the little quote on top, the Latina in me is an ember that blazes forever. And that's sort of the foundation of where Las Jefas come from and where we want to inspire. So in our next slide, we have our socials. Next slide, please, where you guys are able to follow us and support us and be able to see what we're up to, check out our learning resources. And we hope that we're able to share a little bit of our project. And if you'd like to hear more about it, please feel free to reach out to us. And we have Instagram, Twitter, Discord, our very own website. So that's a bit of Las Jefas. And thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it.
But I'm going to keep going. So apologies that I'm not on camera. I'm currently in Los Angeles and I'm on business travel today, but I'm glad that I'm able to join all of you. And I love these charlas. You might hear the music behind me. I'm in a hotel lobby right now because I could not check in. So bear with me, but if you can hear me, that's great. As Jessica mentioned, my name is Tatiana Bertolo. I'm a business lead at Google. I've been at Google for about 4 years now. I'm currently in the media and entertainment space, currently working within the streaming sector. So what does that mean exactly? I'm essentially a sales manager in the ads business of Google. So I'm going to talk a little bit about not necessarily my current experience, but I kind of wanted to start from the beginning here and really talk about my upbringing. So I'm a first generation Latina, very, very proud Latina. My mother is Colombian, my father is Brazilian, and I was born in the Washington, D.C. area. I know that, my current job, I've been able to actually have a lot of different experiences before getting to Google. I've been in defense. I've been at an early stage startup as the 6th employee. I've worked in the government, and then I made my way to Google in New York City. But I was able to have all these different experiences and really learn from these different experiences, really because of my childhood and because of the way I was brought up. So really starting from the beginning here. You know, I have a family that's very loving and supporting. They were always sort of behind me in what I wanted to pursue. And with a Brazilian father, I always, you know, had soccer in the background. And so soccer was actually a huge part of my upbringing. And I played very competitively, starting at a very young age and through college. I decided not to pursue professional soccer because, you know, I really wanted to focus on my career and start making money and really establish, you know, my career. So, but going back to soccer, I could tell you I learned a lot of life lessons, and it really sort of set me up for success in the corporate world. When it comes to just playing sports, you know, you end up learning a lot about discipline, commitment, communication, leadership. And these are all skills that I've been able to transfer. But I would say, you know, through all the sort of achievements, playing at a high level, the one thing that I took away was really how to lose and how to pick yourself up after losing. And I would say that's one of the most important things, that grit, that hustle. You know, if you don't get the right score, if you don't play well, I would say I learned individually and how to work on a team on how to pick yourself back up and really get through life. I had a lot of different coaches, ones that I agreed with, ones that I didn't necessarily agree with. But again, you're going to have coaches in your life, you're going to have bosses in your life that, you know, you may not get along with, you may not have the same viewpoint. But as Latinas, you know, we have that ember inside, like someone just said before, right? You have to be able to speak up, take risks, and really hustle. So I have a quick story about, you know, going to Brazil at a very young age. I was actually one of the few, if not the only female that was playing soccer at the time. When my parents put me in a soccer camp, I was about 6 or 7 years old. In Brazil at that time, I would say mid to late 1990, probably around 1998, let's say. I don't want to date myself too much, but around that time, that was the first time I visited Brazil, and there were no females playing at the time. Females they weren't really allowed to play. It wasn't the social norm. And by the end of that first week at soccer camp, a lot of mothers who had been picking up their sons to and from soccer camp ended up actually enrolling their daughters. And about 4 females ended up being enrolled in a soccer camp the following week. So, you know, I think that just kind of shows at the time, you know, how things have changed. If you look at Brazilian soccer right now and the women's team, they're one of the best in the world. Of course, U.S. women's soccer has always been amazing. But that quickly opened up my eyes to a different world, just being in Brazil and being exposed to that and seeing sort of the changes. So that was a really pivotal moment in my life. But I'm going to end here and just say, you know, there's 3 things that I hope you take away just, you know, from my story. And these are the 3 things that have really helped me sort of pave a way for myself. So the first is hustle. It's grit. I always talk about this. You're going to have a lot of ups. You're going to have a lot of downs. It's how you pick yourself up. Second thing is to be curious. Be open to risk taking. You know, I moved from a very established defense company to a very early startup that no one had ever heard about. I was the 6th employee, but I decided to take on that risk and wear a lot of different hats. And it really served me well, you know, for my future. The third thing is cultivating relationships. That's your family, whether it's your siblings or your parents, your friends, your mentors, right? The professional network. Cultivating relationships is key. Being able to establish those relationships and really form them and make them meaningful. Having mentors in your life, it's like your board of directors. Remember that. You lean on them through good times and bad times. You get advice from people who have experience. And that has really helped me throughout my life. So I'll end it there. I know it's 2:00. It was nice meeting you all. Thank you for listening to my story and hope to connect with you all via LinkedIn.
Hello. I hope you all can see me, hear me clearly. I wanted to say happy Women's History Month. And before I introduce myself, I would be remiss if I didn't say hello and thank you to Antonio Tijerino, the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, but above all, to the most important woman in my life, the most important Latina in my life, my mother, Rosalba Priego, who first and foremost is an activist, an entrepreneur, a spiritualist, and then at the very end, she's my mother, right? My mother immigrated here as a child and quickly understood the landscape here in this country and made it her mission to not just be the voice, right? But to amplify other people's voices, their struggles, their needs, their desires as an activist. And she instilled that in my siblings and I. My charla today is really focusing on metamorphosis. And this all comes from my mother, who taught me and my siblings the importance of exposing ourselves to the world and to the many different opportunities and possibilities there are for us as Latinos in this country, right? So this conversation goes out to the eccentric Latinas, the creative Latinas, and I hope you could take a little piece of what I learned from my mother and apply it to your life or to your experiences. But I started off as an aeronautical engineer. That was my goal from a very young age. I wanted to become an astronaut. And the moment I told my parents, especially my mother, that I wanted to become an astronaut, the first thing she did was take me to two places, Arecibo in Puerto Rico and to Cape Canaveral in Florida. And she exposed me to this world where the possibilities were limitless. I really did feel I could become an astronaut. And I pursued that through elementary and high school, eventually getting accepted into the second best aeronautical engineering program in the country. Now, for most of us eccentric, creative Latinas, we at some point figure out, well, maybe the sciences and the maths, even though it's alluring at first, might not be for us. But I hadn't figured out that I was a creative yet. So I switched and I went into communications. I thought I wanted to be in front of people. I wanted to help people understand certain missions, brands, places, things. And so straight out of college, my sister recruited me to join her on her mission with the Chicago White Sox, a baseball team, if you're familiar with the White Sox in Chicago. And I joined that team in 2005 during the World Series, the height of baseball in Chicago, for us Southsiders at least. And again, here I was exposed to a completely different universe, right? A completely different space. And I was enthralled. I loved it until, again, that calling came. And I thought, maybe private sector's not for me. Maybe I needed to go in more of the public sector, right? The activism started to come out in me. And these are all things my mother had been teaching me. So I started working for Planned Parenthood and the YWCA, working on feminist projects, helping women, specifically women of color, through these nonprofit endeavors. It wasn't until I hit 30 that I realized I had my aha moment. And I realized that I wanted to go into the entertainment industry. I wanted to start telling stories. At 30 years old, I wrote my first web series, which took off, got me representation with one of the best media agencies, CAA, got me one of the best lawyers in the industry. I couldn't believe it. But again, it was those principles that my mother taught me at a very young age, that anything is possible. I don't see time as a hindrance. I don't see my circumstances as a hindrance. They are all my superpowers. And so I've moved forward. Now, the only difference, though, is that in the entertainment industry, it is a beast that is unknown by almost anybody. There is no science. There is no formula. It is talent. It is luck. It is something otherworldly. And as I try to navigate it, I think of three principles that my mother taught me. One, find your people. It is impossible to do anything in any industry unless you find those people that are going to root for you, that are going to advocate for you, that are going to speak your name in rooms that you're not invited to. That is critical. 2, it's not about being fearless. I'm scared all the time. Every room I go into, I'm just, a wreck, but it's about being brave. It's about facing those fears. I never told myself, Jackie, you don't know how to write for screen. I Googled, I YouTubed, I figured it out. You have to work through the fear. And lastly, I know that other people have brought it up, but I can't stress how important health is. Yes, time is limitless, but health is critical. Now, for me, and for many Latinas, this pandemic has been eye-opening. I think a lot of us already knew the struggles of carrying the weight of our families, bringing in the financial responsibilities of a family, right? But we didn't take care of ourselves. And if I could preach anything to all of you today, it's take care of your health. Go get those annual physicals. Make sure that you're in tip-top shape to pursue whatever dreams that you want, and never sacrifice your health, not for a job, not for a promotion, not for a salary increase. It is critical that we as Latinas take care of one another. And I'm just so grateful to have been a part of this amazing charla and to connect with all of you. If you're interested in seeing the web series, I'll add the link in the chat. It's pinkslipped.org, and it follows the story about 3 Latinas all on the verge of losing their jobs. I think something that a lot of us can relate to. And I hope to connect with all of you very soon. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Eileen Marquez. I'm the Manager of Government Affairs at Tyson Foods. Tyson Foods is the world's 2nd largest processor and marketer for chicken, pork, and beef. Before Tyson, I was at the League of United Latin American Citizens. But before I give kind of a rundown of my career, I wanted to kind of let you guys know of what kind of neighborhood where I grew up. So I grew up in Coolmore, Virginia, where 1/3 of these children still live in poverty. Only 30% of the residents own cars. And that's because majority of them are spending half of their paychecks to pay rent. Almost everyone is Latino, and majority of them, a majority of the people that I grew up with lived in multi-family households, which were these crammed 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment buildings. And so I grew up in a place where, as someone mentioned earlier, graduating from high school and getting a job was the American dream. Never, did I think that I was going to be sitting here in a, 78 in the Fortune 500 company in an office in downtown DC, and being able to say that, I come into work every day and able to just succeed so much, especially looking at the sacrifices my parents had. But I think that's where Valeria has a point in changing your mindset, right? For a really long time, I was really embarrassed of where I came from. I was, put your head down, be grateful for what you have. Don't ask questions. When I interned on the Hill, I had to clean houses on the weekends to make sure that I was supporting my mom who cleans houses, and as well as providing some kind of support for my family. And I used to be really, really kind of nervous about people knowing that background. And it wasn't until I got to the League of United Latin American Citizens where ethnicity, your background, your experience, where you came from was something that was really something we embodied, something we embraced. Having to witness Cindy Benavides, who's the CEO of LULAC, her story, her ability to be the youngest Latina, to lead a legacy organization, to be a millennial, and go through her, helped me a lot to shift that mindset, and finding those role models within the industry was something that I found super supportive and super helpful. But another thing that I found throughout my career that was really helpful was really building that community and building that network of other Latinas. Even the opportunity here at Tyson didn't come until another Latina identified as an opportunity and shared the job description and the posting with me, and being able to kind of connect with her. And before I made the shift to corporate America from an advocacy organization, I called 3 other Latinas and asked them about their experience as being Latina in corporate America, because I was really nervous. I had never done it. I'm fairly young in my career. It's a lot of responsibility. And I, was definitely someone who's like, I'm going to be out in the streets protesting anti-corporate America. But one thing I didn't realize is that even Latinas or Latinos in corporate America are advocates in themselves, right? Whether it's opening the door for someone else, whether it is participating in BRG groups where you're able to talk about these issues and bring that attention, but also helping to influence that talent pipeline. And I could honestly say that I would not be able to do this every single day if it weren't for people like the BRG group, for someone like Nora Venegas, who's the Director of Federal Government Affairs here, who I literally will march and say, is my outfit okay? Give me feedback, because you need that comfortable network of Latinas who are able to be honest. One of the stories I have is that Tony Tejerino, who's the CEO of Hispanic Heritage Foundation, we were in a meeting with an executive, and I was the youngest person. I was the only one who didn't have the CEO title, and I decided not to sit at the table because I was so nervous, and I was like, "Quién soy yo?" Who am I to sit at the table with these CEOs? And I remember turning.
Hi, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to Tony for inviting me to be here with all these amazing women. I've been very fortunate in my career to have a terrific network, but I have to admit that it wasn't until recently that I have a network of Latinas. So this is really, truly awesome to have met all of you today, to hear your stories, and now add you to my network so I have more Latinas to turn to. So I was formerly the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at CBS Corporation, which now no longer exists. It became Viacom CBS and now Paramount. But I was at CBS 25 years. I did diversity when it was just diversity, before the inclusion and the equity and the belonging. And I did that for 20 years. I was part of the growing the business, deciding what diversity would be in a network. I mean, the initiative came out because the advocacy groups came after the networks to add more representation. But the truth is, none of us knew what we were doing. So it was a matter of trial and error, figure out what would work. And I'm really glad that in those 20 years of doing D&I, we created some programs that even when now that CBS is gone, turned out to be really terrific events that gave access to Latinos and other people of color that wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity. I was in corporate America. It is kind of brutal, but I owe it to my mom that I kind of always was able to tune out that I was a Latina. And I don't mean that in a negative way. The truth is, when I walk into the room, you kind of know. I don't think people think I'm white or black or anything else. So I didn't have to lead with I'm Latina. I just led with I'm Barbara, and my work ethic, and I'm here to do a job, and hopefully a job that makes an impact. And that was my goal from the very beginning. And through the work at CBS, I was able to create our ERGs and give access to folks that didn't really have access before. And I was really glad that I was able to not only create programs, but open doors and bring others up behind me. So I'm gonna keep my story short. I left CBS in February of 2020, right before the pandemic. So the pandemic gave me an opportunity to pause and decide what I wanted to do next. So I currently just recently launched my own LLC. I'm doing still diversity, equity, inclusion, but now I am doing it across all industries. because there's still plenty of work to do. We'd like to believe that we've made strides, but the truth is that we haven't made enough strides. And so my pursuit is to continue to help make changes in our industries, all our many industries, so that we have real, true inclusion. But the things that have been most important in my career, in making an impact and helping, is, first of all, yes, doing the work, being open to things being different. I mean, as I was growing in my industry, I would be called, usually because I was the only Latina. I mean, it's interesting, in diversity and inclusion, now we had diverse folks doing this work, but again, it was diverse folks that weren't Latino. So I was, again, just the only one. But you learn, you adapt, and you realize that you turn to the people who are there and create networks. I have a tremendous amount of folks that I worked with, that I could turn to, that lifted me up. And then you continue to grow that network, where there was folks that I met through the workshops that we did, that I've then kept them in my circle and helped them to get to the next place, or people who knew me from the work that I did and my drive, that said, oh, you know what, Barbara's the person you want to know. So first and foremost, network is important. When we have these opportunities to meet other women, to be with other people, take a moment, actually get to meet the folks that you get an opportunity to be in a room with. And then foster those relationships. It can't just be, oh, I remember that so-and-so does this. It's been 6 years, let me reach out to them. If you meet someone, there's all these wonderful women on this panel today, take a note, reach out, say hello, tell them what stood out about them in their charla. And then that's how you create a relationship. And then when something comes up, it doesn't feel so awkward to reach out to them. Secondly, what I have found that is incredibly important, especially as I do this diversity, equity, inclusion work, is, and that we're not further along, is that, like, I believe it was Yvette that says, you have to do the you work first. We cannot pretend to go into any of these industries and make a change or make an impact if we will not first understand what we bring to the table as individuals. We need to know what our hangups are, what sets us off, what lights us up. Because when we are clear on who we are, what is acceptable, what we will do to make things the way we want to see them, be the change we want to be, we have to know who we are and what we're willing to do, what we're willing to work. And if where you want to be, you don't get there through where you are currently, then find a place that gets you there. But don't be in a place where you're sort of phoning it in, because you not only hurt yourself, but you hurt the process for something else. And then lastly, I think it is infinitely important that as Latinas, because we're building now, we haven't been around this, we haven't had the opportunities this long, so that not as many of us in all these industries that we would like. You know, the interesting thing is that other folks have people in the industry, in this industry, and they just said, oh, yeah, you can hire your friend's daughter or your niece's, your neighbor. There's access. We are now finally having access. There's enough of us in all of these industries. So I'm so thrilled of the variety of all of the panelists, that we have to keep the door open. We have to be the ones to say, you know what, this wasn't so easy for me, but there is no reason why it can't be easier for you, because now we're here and we're doing this and we are going to continue to do it. So I am doing D&I work. I did it, like I said, 20 years in entertainment. I did 25 years in entertainment. I continue to do it. I have 2 projects at HBO, working with them with 150 and HBO Max through a DEI lens, so that our folks, all of them, are being seen and the projects are being seen. But then I'm also doing the work in the clean energy space, in the tourism space. And also I'm now working with a startup media company, Latina focused, for our community, to create a place where Latinos can go to for real, truthfully sourced news. So there are a lot of opportunities, and I think we just keep working at growing us. growing this network. I think it was Valeria who said it, that we are powerful. We really are. And I think the moment that we let go of the thought that we're not, we will become infinitely more powerful, and it'll be for ours to lose. So my takeaway is just, keep these lines open, help each other, continue to network, and, and we have some really impressive young women on this panel, so they are already well on their way. But as you guys grow, remember that we have to keep bringing each other up, lifting each other, and doing the work. So I thank Tony, because as I told Jessica, you don't really say no to Antonio because he's amazing and he does the work on a daily basis for all of us. So thank you, Antonio. And to all the panelists, it was a pleasure. And thank you all for listening to the charla today.
Thank you so much. And as Ben said, you don't say no to Antonio. I just want to pause here because we've been going and listening to such inspirational stories. So I just want to take 1 second for everyone to close your eyes. And if you can see me, just don't see me, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just inhale that immense power and energy, positivity that I think is so important for us to have. So I just want to say thank you to Hispanic Heritage Foundation and everyone who's here for creating this space. And with that said, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm super inspired. I'm already taking all the names that are right here. Let me know if you can see me because I can't see my video, but I think you can see me, right?
Of course.
Okay, great. Excellent. So my name is Lily Gangas. I'm the Chief Tech Community Officer at the Caper Center. And for folks who may be wondering, what is the Caper Center? We're an operating foundation at the intersection of technology and racial justice. We provide research, thought leadership, we operate programs, we support strategic partnerships through grants, investments, all to increase the representation of people who look like us, of people of color and women across the tech ecosystem, everything from K through 12 education through entrepreneurship and venture capital. And specifically, as we all know, just reflecting the last 2 years, right, we've seen the immense role that technology plays in our lives as we all went digital, whether our communities were ready or not, our families were not ready. We saw so much of the need. And it's really important why we have to take even a more explicit and more actionable role in the tech force. And as you've seen, some of the amazing speakers are leaders in all of this space. But I'll just share a few numbers because I want you to get a sense of the immensity and the opportunity, right? The size of the tech force is over 12 million tech workers. And a lot of the wealth creation that we're seeing in this generation has come from the tech sector, right? And we've seen this last 2 years, over 3.4 trillion added in new revenues from the big tech companies. And every day we're utilizing it just like we are right now, right? Over 70% of adults and even more in the younger demographics use it. So we know that the technology has an immense opportunity and power to really change our lives, but we have to make sure that it's changing it for the good and it's actually closing gaps of access, which is why for me, that's always been my North Star. And so currently I've actually pivoted from being an engineer to working in the public-private sector to not actually being in the foundation at the Caper Center, focusing on really bringing together all these different pieces of the ecosystem and now mobilizing us towards action, leveraging the power of policy, leveraging the power of community advocacy to be able to really bring some of these solutions to bear. But before I started doing that, I actually immigrated to the US when I was 7 years old. So if you're in the chat, if you immigrated, put it in, let me know where you're coming from. I'm a proud Bolivian, and I start with this because my story is a story of immigrants, like many of you. And I, just like many of the speakers have shared, the role that the women in my life, specifically my mom, being a single parent, immigrating with 2 daughters, not knowing the English, taking 2 jobs, and seeing her work so hard made me take on an extra responsibility to know that my schooling was my job, that I needed to excel. And so that's always been my North Star and being able to say, how can I do this? But I didn't know English, right? And so math was my first language. And that actually created the opportunity for me to be interested in technology. And I ground myself in this because sometimes those gaps of things that were not enough or were not there yet, those are, if you flip it, those are really the opportunities. So I use the opportunity of not knowing the language, not being able to communicate, but to really excel in math and be able to pursue that. And I was very fortunate that there was a great support system around me that helped me be able to see that gift. So I took that all the way down to, down to USC. I grew up in LA, San Fernando Valley. I was able to get a full ride at USC, and I studied electrical engineering. And believe me, that was one of the hardest 4 years that I've ever had, because when you're transitioning from being, a teen to now a young adult, but now you're the only one that looks like yourself in these classrooms, right? I was discovering what resistors were when some of these students, my classmates, had built circuits themselves. So I felt that I was definitely out of place. But however, there was, again, the community factor came something that empowered me. And I was able to really put in the hard work. I remember calling my mom one day. I was about to change my majors and I wasn't sure what this career was about. But I remember my mom she told me, she's like, did you really study your best? Did you give it your all? I'm like, I guess I could have done better. And then I remember the words that have stuck with me till this day. You finish whatever you start. And I'm so glad that she put that into me, because if it wasn't for my opportunity to finish the degree in electrical engineering, I wouldn't have discovered the power that a career in technology can provide. In my first job, right after USC, I went on to do aerospace engineering. And there I learned how to code on the job. So imagine transitioning all these spaces. But I just remember the curiosity that I had in building a lot of these large systems. But I also saw the economic upward mobility that this career gave me. With my first job right out of undergrad with no experience, I was making 2 to 3 times what my mom was earning, working 2 to 3 jobs. And that stuck to me because I saw that that wealth generation that I mentioned at the beginning, I was actually part of this now. And now I was like, oh, wow, like, this is something that I knew at the bottom of my heart I wanted to continue to pursue. However, when you're in your mid-20s, I started questioning, what is it that I'm building? Who is it helping? Who is it impacting? And I knew that I didn't want to be working in the aerospace. One of my unclassified projects, most of my career I was in classified projects. I didn't know what I was building. But one of my last unclassified projects had me working on ballistic missiles that shoot out of submarines. And that stopped me in my ground, because I started understanding the geopolitical environment, the consequences, and I knew that there was something else that I wanted to do. I wanted to use technology in a different format. And so this is where led me to my first big pivot in my career. For all the folks who are here, like my mom, when I told her that, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to find my true purpose and passion. Imagine your mom being like, what? You just went to school 4 years, you have a great job, you're earning as much as you can. What's the problem? But I knew that there was something else. And I think that I wanted to share that example because there's going to be a lot of times where everything may seem, yeah, this is great, we're doing it. Everybody's like, yeah, keep doing that. But in my head, I'm like, there was something else. There was something more. In my gut, I wanted to use technology in a different format to close gaps of access, to help people have better opportunities, and also be able to have that upward economic mobility that I had that really changed my life. And that's when I went on to business school. I'll save that story for another time. But I went through a lot of different pivots. I moved from, hardware, software engineering to now consulting and working with public sector consulting at the federal level at Booz. And then I did that with startups, with Accenture, but there was still something else missing. And I remember taking the train or the BART into Oakland. And I remember seeing a bunch of folks, specifically Black, Latinx folks, and youth and adults, all talking about the power that technology had. And I had never seen that many folks that looked like me in a room, so excited, and folks who were building it, who were investing it. And so that's where my story with Caper Center comes in, where I really now saw the opportunity to bring my skills and sets and to bring it to the impact space. And specifically now, as you've heard from some of the past speakers, we know the stats for women and Latinas specifically in tech are low. So I'll put in some of the links to our presentation so you can see the data. But I don't want us to also think about the deficit, right? Because I also have seen a lot of Latinas in tech who are surpassing and creating new companies. They're investing in new companies. And we know that it's possible, but we need it going back to community and bringing that forth into these spaces is really critical. And I remember that as I was doing this work at Caper Center, there was a specific lack of specifically more Latinx programming. And so that led me to invest part of my time to create those programs. And eventually I was able to spin it out. And now I have my own startup called ltxconnect.org, which last year brought over 5,000 of Latinx across the US, across sectors, to connect online and for us to build community together and show that we're not, even though we may be the ones in our seats, but when you come out, we're not only in the thousands, we're in the millions. The Latinx population is one of the fastest growing segments in the US. And so we want to make sure that we're leveraging that power together and being able to put that towards good. So I'll pause here because I know we're probably over time, but I just want to share, I just wanted to just share that story with you all, because at the end of the day, yes, we may be ones in those rooms, but don't forget that you're representing the thousands, the millions that are here across the US. And so with that said, I will pause here. I hope that you can also learn more about the work that we're doing, and I'll put it into the chat. And thank you so much for the time. And thank you, Hispanic Heritage Foundation team and Antonio, for the time.
Muchas gracias for joining us and sharing your journey, Lily. Borrowing your mom's advice, you finish what you start. Thank you. And so we have reached the end of today's charla. A special thank you to all our speakers and all of you for joining us today as we celebrate Latinas. Our next charla will be on April 20th with Nationwide Dealing with Finance. So we all invite you to join us and hope to see you there.